Am I the butthole for telling my mother that the way I parent will never change? I, 23 female, have 2 children, 5 female and 3 male. My style of parenting is not the most popular. One main thing of mine is I do not punish my kids. I ignore bad behavior and reward good behavior, or if they're doing something wrong I simply redirect them. It works amazing for me and my children are both very well adjusted and behaved. Something else I do is give them full control over their own bodies. They decide how they want their hair, what clothes they wear, if they want to be touched or not, etc. My daughter has a shaved head and she's honestly rocking it. My parents, specifically my mother, hate this. My sister had a wedding and asked them to wear formal clothes. My daughter wore a suit and my son wore a dress, which upset pretty much everyone. My sister was thankfully okay with it, and said while she'd have appreciated my daughter in a dress, to be bridesmaid, she understood it was her decision to make, not ours. She didn't mind my son because he was flower boy and she said him wearing a dress fit the aesthetic better, so a win all round. Anyway, my mother is getting increasingly pissed off. She gets butthurt when she wants a hug and they say no, and I don't force them to hug her. She continues to buy my daughter feminine clothes that get promptly donated to charity and insists on buying my son boys' toys which he never uses. This has become a huge problem. She's upset because she thinks my kids don't like her, and I explain they'd like her more if she just left them alone. They can talk, they have opinions, ask them how they're feeling and work with that. Recently this has progressed into her calling me a neglectful mother. Apparently they'll never learn boundaries, which makes me laugh because she's the one who doesn't understand boundaries, but I digress. Apparently they'll never grow up and will be bullied in school, and become snowflakes. She also claims they'll become badly behaved once they grow up. I think she's being a bitch for trying to change the way I parent, and she thinks I'm driving a force between my kids and her. Am I the butthole? Edit. Since I posted this I've gotten many comments. I apologize for not being able to reply to them all. Every comment I've received can be placed into these categories: someone who was neglected, praising me and saying on what they wish they had / asking me to adopt them, which honestly warms my heart. You all deserved so much better and I would adopt you if I could. Someone asking for parenting advice, which I'm more than happy to help out with. My number 1 tip is just go with your gut, be the parent you wished you had. Mistakes are okay. Apologize and move on. And finally, people who are telling me I'm creating monsters and I should burn in hell for all eternity. Which is valid, I guess? My parenting works for me. If it needs adjusting for them in the future then I will adjust it, but my children are good kids, they aren't evil. They understand boundaries and consent more than your average child, so I'm really not worried about them in the real world. They'll be fine. And of course I've had the odd bits of advice which I also really appreciate. I've been informed the way I discipline my children isn't ignoring them, it's just a lesser-known way. Negative punishment, positive rewards. I explain their bad behavior to my children and why it wasn't good, and it's worked perfectly so far. If it needs adjusting in the future I will do so. And I've had quite a few professionals tell me this is the preferred method of discipline, so I'm sticking with it for now. As for the wedding incident, I discussed everything with my sister, and we bought my daughter's suit/son's dress 2 months before the wedding. At first she didn't like that my daughter wouldn't be wearing a dress, but I explained some personal things to her that I will not be putting on the internet, and we came to an agreement. She still was a little upset, but said she'd rather have my daughter in the bridesmaid photos in the suit than not in them at all. By the time the wedding actually happened she seemed very happy with it and wasn't as upset as beforehand. I think she just needed time to adjust. And she asked my son to be in a dress. I was going to put him in a suit, because tiny suits are adorable, but she specifically asked, and he was very happy to wear a princess dress. I'm not here to discuss my children's clothing or genders with you, that is between me and actual professionals. Thank you all for understanding. Your mom doesn't get a say in your parenting choices and you're doing a good job letting them make their own choices. So, overall, not the butthole. However, I have to say your I ignore bad behavior choice is going to bite you in the ass down the road. It's as important to teach consequences as it is to teach independence. My children are very praise-driven, so ignoring them really is the best form of punishment. You hit mommy, I don't want to be near you right now. That hurt. Is a surefire way to get them to behave? My daughter has only hit me once, and that was about 2.5 years ago. Oh. This would do well to fit into your main post. You don't actually ignore the bad behavior. You verbalize your emotions and connect that to their actions. That isn't ignoring their bad behavior. That's teaching them how actions affect others. ETA, so surprised at all the upvotes and awards. So I'm including my judgment just in case, not the butthole. Oh. I just assumed I was ignoring them. That's what my parents call it. Laughing out loud. Well, I mean, your parents also say you're neglectful, so maybe let's just assume they have no idea what they're talking about. This feels like a very safe assumption. I feel like this actually is not an assumption. Just objective fact. Yeah, I would change ignore to redirect just to make it more clear what is happening. When I hear ignore, my mind falls to the stories where kids do really bad stuff like breaking items and whatnot and the parent does nothing. In some cases, that can work. When I was a kid and threw a tantrum in the store, my mother just waited it out. Just calmly waited while I thrashed and screamed. And when I was all screamed out, we continued what we were doing. You don't gain anything by tantruming, it doesn't change a thing, and so why do it? Great incentive to use other strategies like talking. Not a god look. I feel sorry for every other person in the store, having to listen to a kid's tantrum. Personally, that's one of the most stressful and annoying things to happen in stores, and it's very inconsiderate to everyone around you. I have to agree to a point. There's a difference between mom standing by tantruming child, watching them but not obviously engaging, versus someone letting a kid scream and just ignoring it. But either way, getting them to an area where they aren't disturbing others should be at least somewhat of a priority. It's not your fault your kid isn't neurotypical, but it's also not the store full of people's fault. Why should they be punished? My mom solved public tantrums with me in a way I think is solid. She'd get down to my level, speak calmly about how if I didn't stop, we'd have to leave, and then add, "Everyone is looking at you and you're embarrassing yourself. Do you really want people to think you're a bad girl when we know you are a good girl?" While that sounds like it worked, it also seems like the sort of thing that could give a kid a lot of anxiety about what other people think of them. While waiting for prescriptions at my local pharmacy recently, I was intrigued by how calm and completely oblivious a fellow patron was to the chaos her kids were creating while they waited. The kids around ages 3 to 6 were running around barefoot all over the store, bumping into shelves and people as she sat silently with the youngest one. I get the whole promoting and nurturing independence, but what happens when you're out of your home and in public places where your lack of boundaries runs into other space? That's not independence, that's a prime example of terrible parenting. Yeah, I would probably revise how you're describing this part of your parenting philosophy, because it's likely leading to some serious miscommunication. For people like your mom, punishment might mean some form of retribution against a child. And it sounds like you're not punishing them in this sense of the term, which a lot of people probably agree is a good choice. But for many other people, punishment means explaining what a child did wrong and issuing appropriate consequences. Explaining that hitting mommy isn't okay and then saying it means you don't want to play anymore is a version of this approach. I just ignore their bad behavior makes it sound like your kids are off biting their playmates and stealing from house guests and you just let it happen because kids will be kids. Anyway, not the butthole, but I think I had the wrong impression of your parenting approach when you first started describing it. I feel like this is a classic case of a parent using discipline compared to their parent using punishments as discipline. Hit the nail on the head there. Yes, original poster is using negative reinforcement, withdrawing from the situation and not playing with her kid after being hit, and not punishments, for example, putting them in a timeout for hitting. Avoiding punishments as much as possible in general is ideal for reinforcing behaviors because punishments can have unintended consequences. This is extremely good parenting, in my opinion. This is totally pedantic and I'm sorry, but she's actually using negative punishment, taking away something they like, her attention, in response to bad behavior. Negative reinforcement is taking away something unpleasant in response to good behavior, to encourage that behavior. Yeah, this to me sounds like gentle parenting, where discipline is used, but punishments are not. Which science is starting to back this approach more and more? That is called positive parenting. It's a correction and redirection with a statement of consequence. Look into positive parenting articles and advice, and I'm guessing you will see that you already do a lot of what is recommended. You sound like a great mom. Thank you. I'll definitely look into it. You're the butthole. At ages 5 and 3, their brains aren't developed enough to understand acceptable versus unacceptable behavior. It's ludicrous to expect that. Unacceptable behavior should have consequences. As they get older and have more interactions with other kids, bad behavior has the potential to gain something for themselves while hurting others. Simply ignoring the behavior doesn't balance out the positive reinforcement your child has gained by hurting another person. Also, going back to the kids' ages, they look to you for how to deal with your mom. You don't actively encourage it. They aren't going to have a relationship. As for the wedding, oh holy F, you were a butthole. You don't pull crap at someone's wedding that takes attention away from the groom and bride. You knew that your son wearing a dress would be attention grabbing. You need to step things up as a parent and do more. You need to stop thinking their brains are just small adult brains. You need to actively encourage them to do the right things, and actively discourage them from the wrong things. They need to understand that bad behavior has consequences. They should be learning that from you. The rest of society will hold them to consequences and won't be gentle or kind. Edit. Everyone, thank you for all the rewards and encouraging DMs. Thanks. Happy to go down with you in this ship. I feel like I am taking crazy pills reading this thread. You are telling me a 3-year-old unprompted decided to wear a dress when his older sister decided to wear a suit? Somehow both kids independently decided they wanted to defy gender norms at a wedding? Bullcrap. Knowingly or unknowingly, that was a decision guided by their mother for the purpose of seeing attention or to pick a fight about her parenting style with her family. Our main job as parents is to help our children become functional adults. You definitely won't see the damage this parenting style does until your kids are in school. I would caution the original poster that I have met several families adopting this style in the process of raising my own children and seen what happens over the years. It is hard not to notice the kid who decides to wear dresses to a soccer game. Children today are way more tolerant of differences than they were in the past, but that doesn't mean they are going to celebrate them like the original poster is. Effectively, what ends up happening is the other kids largely ignore them, and they end up isolated and angry kids. Anecdotal, I know. You are telling me a 3-year-old unprompted decided to wear a dress when his older sister decided to wear a suit? Somehow both kids independently decided they wanted to defy gender norms at a wedding? Exactly what I was thinking. Even if a 3 and a 5-year-old did want to wear those things, couldn't original poster just have them dress in the proper, formal attire for one person's wedding? By pulling a stunt like this, she's putting all the attention on herself and her kids. Not only that, I highly doubt kids, given the choice, would choose any style of formal wear. Kids like comfort, not style or fashion, as a general rule. That's a strange assumption to make. Not all kids are the same, and I definitely remember being excited to wear princess dresses at family weddings. Op doesn't have zero boundaries. She let her kids choose what they wanted to wear within the formal constraints, and the bride approved. I'm with you on this one. When my daughter was 3, she was the flower girl in a wedding. Her dress was a beautiful replica of the wedding dress. She looked beautiful. She hated dresses. She cried so hard. I calmed her enough for the ceremony. The minute it was over, she walked right up to me and started crying again and said, "Can I take it off now?" Of course I let her. She is 23 now and I still laugh. She has never been a girly girl, ever. Hated it as a toddler. Would say ruffles and the color pink hurt. The dramatics were hilarious. My former mother-in-law tried like hell to make her princess stuff and she hated all of it. I finally had to put my foot down and tell her to stop. Yes, this. My stepdaughter used to love formal/princess dress so much she'd literally sleep in them. I couldn't imagine with all that itchy fabric, as I was definitely one of those kids where texture really mattered. But not all kids are the same, because they have their own personalities and preferences. Who knew? And it's really amazing how much people forget that. Exactly, I wouldn't be surprised if a 3-year-old chose pajamas. Laughing my butt off. I wonder how entitled these kids are going to end up. Instilling in kids the difference between entitlement and independence is a fine line to walk, which they probably won't understand until it's way too late. A. This post is likely fake, and B. This sub has had issues for a long time now. I'm not sure if it's still sticked, but there was a great post about how this sub is developing a value system that doesn't actually match that of society. For example, yeah, you're within your rights to blast music on your property technically all day every day until noise ordinances kick in. But your neighbors are still going to effing hate you. Doesn't matter how technically right you are. It's the boy toys never get used that also makes me think this is fake. He's 3 and they're toys. They don't have to have a gender and his sister could play with them too. Lol, very good point, it tilted me too. Kids will play with literally anything. When I was 7 I got a bottle holder in school and for some reason I decided it was a pet and I played with it all day. Laughing out loud. I am with you. As much as I hope this is a fake post, I have personally known a few single-parent families exactly like this. They had kids right out of high school, got divorced, and now they have to make their life sound interesting for their Facebook friends. Either way, this is a sad post. And the post about the guy having no responsibility to the disabled child left with him on a bench by his mom, a stranger, and it was perfectly legal for him to walk away from him. Yes, it was legal, but it wasn't very moral or kind to the actual boy, was it? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.